person that's indicated he would like to address the council, Mr. Leon Hoppy, is that correct? Would you please stand up at the podium there? Your public comment is for you an opportunity to address the council. You're limited to 5 minutes. You want to make a comment here, you've signed up already, so you may proceed. Please give us your name and where you live, please.
Yeah, I'm Leon Hoppy. I live at 274 Elmwood Avenue,
Okay.
right across from the church. Question I have, the first thing is about, I know you're redoing the highway because it's all broke up, which I understand that. I spent about 4 hours already last week breaking chunks of tar like this off my yard, and I know the road's breaking up. But I've also been watching, this week I haven't seen any, well, I'll put it today, I haven't seen any yet. The big trucks that haul that outside of town, that manure for sewage. Actually, a few weeks ago, I was down here at the stop sign, I saw one of those trucks turn that corner. I don't know if the lid was open or if it was overfilled, but it was dripping out, and I actually saw some of that drip on a lady's car. Now, I also watched it because I followed it. It went all the way up the hill, past our place, and it was dripping all the way. So I sat outside and I waited. That truck came back in, the same one, and it was still dripping stuff off that truck. Now, I see those trucks where they fill them, and they're constantly dripping stuff off on the road, and it's getting on people's vehicles. Gets on mine, I'd be upset, just like that lady was, because I saw her hands go up in the air. Now, I've actually watched more than one when they turn these corners, this stuff dripping off of them. Now, don't they get them things cleaned off when they empty them? Or are they overfilling them? Or aren't those lids sealed? Because you look at every one of them, you can see every one where it sloshes over. And you can smell it. That was one thing I wanted to talk about was them outside. The fact is, there's some of them that do speed, because one thing that I would like to see myself, like that speed limit sign you got on top of the hill by the cemetery, is 30 miles an hour, and just before LaBelle's it goes to 50. Wouldn't it be smarter to have that 30 going past LaBelle's yet for a little ways? Because you come out of LaBelle's, somebody's already pushing up to 50 miles an hour. You ain't getting out of that driveway. You really, really gotta watch. And I brought that up one other time too, when we were up at the fire hall. I had brought that up about that when we were talking about the sidewalks and everything. The other thing I've got to bring up is the city wants us to bury the electrical lines that run overhead to our houses. Now, you want us to bury this at our expense? To me, I don't have a problem with the line running there. Now, my neighbor had his buried. He keeps asking me when I'm going to bury mine. It doesn't bother me. Works just fine. Why should I have to pay to have that buried? That's one question I have. Other than that, I said my piece.
Thank you very much. We do not respond here at this time. Obviously, the city administrator, I noticed, was making notes already, and we'll ask him to look into these things and be able to get back to him. Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. Thank you. Mr. Hoppy, may I ask you a question?
Sure.
By any chance, do you know where that truck went? Did you watch where it went?
Yeah, it went out to the plant.
Did it go to the plant or only in that direction?
Well, see, they do go, sometimes they go up past the school and they come in the other road and go to the plant. And it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, I know I saw at least 9 or 10 go by our house. I'm retired, so I'm sitting there watching TV right in the bay window, and I can hear them coming. Okay. You can actually feel it because the roads broke so bad, but yeah, they've been going out to that plant.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comment.
You're welcome.
Go ahead.
Can I just make one comment? If you do see that happening, feel free to call 911. Let us know. That's an unsecured
Call 911?
Yes, please. And they'll dispatch will then alert our police officers, and they can go and confirm that they are spilling. And if they are, they'll get a ticket that's an unsecured load. So,
Yeah.
and we've written those tickets out before, and people have reported it through 911. So I would say just do that. Say it's a non-emergency, and let them know what's happening, and our police department can look into it.
Okay, cause you can look at every one of them tankers, you can see where it's all run down the sides and everything.
Again, thank you for your comments. Members of the council, we didn't have a motion to open public comment, but obviously we did. Is there anyone else from the public that wants to address the council? Seeing none, it would be appropriate to have a motion to close public comment.
So moved.
Mr. Pavlis has made the motion. Is there a second? And Mr. Sullivan seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Matter passes. The motion is carried. Public comment is closed. We move now to the regular agenda. CSAH 22 improvement project. Mr. City Administrator.
President Krogman, members of the City Council. Before you is an item looking at the casa 22 improvement project. We do have City Engineer Corey Bean here, along with the County Highway Engineer Dave Teagues. If there are any questions, I will just summarize it and go through this. And if there are questions, we do have the experts here in the house for those types of questions. So we opened up bids on February 27th. Though there were two bids. SM Henches and Sons came in as the apparent low bidder at $15,219,084.72. Engineer's estimate was the city portion of the construction project of that $15 million and change totals of $5,027,460.01. The Sueur County Board awarded the contract to SM Henches and Sons, the apparent low bidder, contingent on approval by the City Council here tonight. They did that on March 3rd. And if approved, the work will start on this project in May of 2020, so May of this year. And the final completion date that's listed in the bid documents is December 1st, 2021. What we're looking for tonight is a motion to approve resolution, and there's a resolution. There's some verbiage that has changed, and there'll also be a change where therefore be it resolved by the mayor and city council. We would move to strike the mayor and it would just be the city council, since technically the mayor is not here tonight. But there's resolution R 2020-005 awarding the contract for the casa 22 improvement project to SM Henches and Sons, totaling $15,219,084.72. Now with that, I will entertain any questions, and we do have, again, City Engineer Beanfang and the County Engineer, Mr. Teagues, here as well.
Members of council, if you would also note, you received a slightly updated copy tonight indicating in the resolution in the first line that the city staff is authorized and directed. That had been omitted inadvertently in the beginning. It's on the copy you received this evening. Go ahead, please, Mr. Beanfang.
I have nothing else to add.
To be in excess of $6 million for you to talk, is that it? You didn't get, no, I'm sorry.
We, to be honest with you, council members, we had a pretty thorough summary and update at the workshop a week ago from tonight. And the only other, piece that I'll add is that contingent on approval tonight, then we would be proceeding into the construction schedule that I included in the write-up. And that will include a touch base point before we enter construction for the public. So we hold a pre-con here end of this month, and then we would be targeting a public open house neighborhood style meeting early part of April that the contractor would be in attendance with, and really allowing folks an opportunity to get a view in and be able to ask questions, publicly as far as what to expect this coming summer for the construction season. So otherwise the schedule is consistent to what we talked about previously.
Thank you. Council members, do you have any questions for our city engineer?
I have none.
None? Seeing none, it'd be appropriate to move then, Mr. City Administrator. Do you have anything further on this?
No, I don't. I mean, we're looking forward to the project. I think, as was alluded to before, the road's in pretty rough shape, and this needs to get done. And we're excited. It's going to be be a long process, 2-year project, but we're going to strive to communicate the best we can, and I'll leave it up to you to give me feedback about those communication styles and what's working, what's not, and we'll adapt. But yeah, we're going to focus on communicating the project to not only the residents that are adjacent, but everybody in the community.
Thank you. Council members, it would be appropriate this time if someone wants to make a motion approving resolution R20-005, awarding the contract for CSAH 22 improvement project to SM Hengens and Sons totaling $15,219,084.72. Noting that the resolution here, the words "the mayor and" would be struck from the resolution line, so it would read, "Now therefore be it resolved by the city council that." Would someone like to so move?
So moved.
Mr. Favelis has moved. Is there a second?
Correction, I was on that somewhere.
I apologize. Mr. Sullivan, is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Favelis seconds the motion. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries. Thank you. Appreciate your help.
Thank you.
Move now to the Comprehensive Plan Action Team Bylaws Review. Again, members of the council, you've received an updated copy this evening. A few minor changes some changes were made. You have that in front of you. Let's just go to general discussion of this. First, Mr. City Administrator.
President Krogman, members of the council, before you, this is kind of an extension of our retreat that we discussed, the Comprehensive Plan Action Team. I think there was solid direction from City Council to reboot this group and kind of refine it and get new members, and then assign some membership to this. So what you have in your packet is what I've done is I've taken the bylaws that CPAT took upon themselves to develop in 2017, put it in what I would consider our standard bylaws format, and included some things. I have included a copy with some highlighted. This was given out earlier today. There is one little change in section 4, removing a duplicated sentence. But really what this does is this establishes the board, known as CPAT. It talks about the purpose. One thing that I did take out of this is the action plans that were determined under the purpose. And the reason is for that is just if City Council or CPAT feels like that should be added back in there, we can. I just don't want to assign them a new group. I'm handling this as a new group with some tasks that they might not exactly know, or we might not exactly know what we want to get from them. So the tasks in general that we have for this would be to recommend to the Planning Commission proposed amendments to the Sueur 2040 Comprehensive Plan. This is very relevant as we anticipate multiple amendments this year. And then another one that we discussed during our goals and priorities is the Plan the Future of the City Forum as well, and task them to that. So other things that were changed in here, and there's one thing that we need to specifically talk about, is we clarified membership, or voting versus non-voting. That's descriptively put in here. And then also to have an EDA and a Planning Commission member on the CPAT. And then also there's a clarification for the election of officers in here. One of the things that we should discuss is for the non-voting members. I think it's assumed, or what I've gathered is that the ex officio would be the mayor and the staff liaison would be myself. One thing that we could do is we could actually define that in section 5 of Article 1. That the ex officio, there shall be one ex officio member, which is the mayor, and one staff liaison, which is the city administrator, that shall have no voting privileges, but may participate in the discussions of the committee. That'd be a way to handle that type of direction that we've received. The other thing is to look at the voting membership and what that looks like. One thing that was added in here was specifically defining that there will be a Planning Commission member and an EDA member as part of the board. So of the 4 citizen members 2 of those would be one existing board and commission members as well. I've had Ms. DiMaggio, the community development director, kind of reach out and send a feeler email out to both the EDA and the planning commission to see if there would be anybody that would be interested in it. I said if there isn't anybody interested, then it kind of comes up to, we would appoint somebody to that role. But there has been some interest in both of those. The question is, where do we draw the line as far as, incorporating other boards and commissions into CPAT? I think the Planning Commission and the EDA really make sense. There had been discussion about the RPAC being mentioned in here. But the question I have is, we can do that. It's just, do we want to include, if we include RPAC, then do we include all the other boards and commissions? Because really, it's all related. The reason why the Planning Commission in there, I think, is somewhat obvious, but they're the ones that make the recommendations to City Council related to any comp plan amendments, directly related to the comp plan action team. The EDA as well, they're looking at the comp plan and making advancements in that sense as far as what the vision is for the community. I think that's why they're in there as the purpose as well. Keep in mind, there's generally a City Council representative on each of the other boards and commissions as well, and we hope that they can capture that information that they get from those other boards, such as RPAC, and bring that to the CPAT team. So, with that, I think if there are any comments about the bylaws, we can definitely discuss that. I think the non-voting membership, we should have some clarity in that if we want to designate the mayor and myself as the staff liaison. Other than that, just general feedback about the bylaws would be great. The idea is that once we get the bylaws adopted, we'll continue to market the couple vacancies in this for this board. We do have one of the former members has indicated that they would like to be on the board again, or the team again. So that would really indicate there would be one vacancy available pending that person's appointment to the board that we could market and try to fill, assuming that there would be a planning commission and an EDA member as well. So with that, I'll entertain any questions. I think we have one task that I would like to get clarified, but there may be more.
Let's begin, if we can, let's go around and be a little bit clearer. We'll start with Mr. Sullivan.
I have no questions.
None? Okay.
First, my thought is with you as the liaison. Is this something that does this befit your work? And in other words, would you ever be looking at having other staff take that position in the future? Because otherwise, there's no sense in writing that in.
Yeah, if I may, I can answer that. I think it's a great fit. I think it's previously it was the community development director. I think that would be a perfectly fine fit as well. But I think that if it's at that level, if the mayor being the ex officio and myself being the staff liaison, I think it would work out, and I would look forward to it. I think it's a good group.
Personally, I was on CPAT before. I wouldn't mind being back on it again. It would make sense because I'm on EDA and on RPAC. Mark seems to be in that same position as I am too, other than that I'm familiar with what it was set up and how it was set up before, and some of the reasons why it failed before. So I'll throw my hat in the ring on that one if it's fitting.
Thank you. I think what we'll do with that one, so everybody's clear, is it's a mayoral appointment with consent of the council, and so we'll defer that until the mayor has had an opportunity to decide what he recommends to the council. Do you have anything further?
Again, because what we have this in front of us to for the bylaws, but I'm still, how is the structure going to work where it failed before?
I can talk to that if I may. I was part of those initial CPAT discussions. I was actually, I think, the staff liaison right away. I think one thing that I think that we can do to help alleviate that is kind of limit or reduce the scope that the group is initially looking at. I think they were very ambitious, and that's a good thing, but they were ambitious to the sense that some of the initial meetings were 3-4 hours long, and I think that turned off a lot of the volunteers that were in there. So having a scope that's really defined, if there's an amendment to the comp plan, it would first go to CPAT, then it would go to the planning commission, then the planning commission could potentially recommend something to city council. I think that path is very logical. It makes a lot of sense. In the future of the city forums, one of the things that they can do right away, the first thing they can hit the ground running is start planning that event. I think, if we want to do it this summer, we should start planning now. So I think that you have some real substantive work that they could do immediately and feel like they've accomplished something. I think that was from my observations. I think it was a lot of discussing and not accomplishing much. And I think that we kind of set this up, scaled it back so that there can be some accomplishments that the group feels that they've done almost immediately.
To be clear, in that limitation, so we're all kind of focusing, on an original draft that was floated around, there were two items that are not on the draft you have in front of you. One was mentioned by the city administrator just a few moments ago, but there's another also. The first one was develop an action item completion plan. That's not on the draft that we're looking at tonight. And the other is monitor progress of the action plan and report back to the city council on a biannual basis, July and December. City administrators indicated, if I understand you correctly, you want to keep those out to simplify the tasks that this group is charged with doing. Is that right?
I would say initially that's the recommendation. If we would like to add them back in at some given time, like let's say the group really does well at planning the future of the city forum, and they're really looking to do more. There's probably some tasks that we can come up with. Some of those maybe related to the action plan idea. One of the things that I'll just give feedback about with the action plan idea is that administratively, it's difficult for one group that really has, no authority per se to give direction to planning commission, EDA, all the different boards and commissions. When I believe that should come from the top down at city council. We set our goals, and then each of those groups kind of know what they're supposed to be working on based on those goals. It's a little kind of I understand the intent of it to make sure that we're accomplishing some of those action tasks, but it just seemed like the sequencing and the kind of chain of command was undefined to the point where it didn't really know what the groups were, who they were reporting to. So I think that there's probably a way to do that in a more linear method so that there's some accountability. But that'd be something that we could develop if the group or city council feels like that's a task that they'd like to add to them.
Please index that if you want to comment. We'll have one more opportunity if you want to add it back in. Let's go to Mr. Sueur.
I still feel that someone from RPAC should be on this. If it's one of the city council members that is also representing RPAC, I'd be fine with that, but should we define it in here somehow that a representative from RPAC should be on here?
Now, to be clear, you're indicating you want that as a part of the voting membership, not listed in section 3, the purpose, but rather under voting membership?
Under section 4, yes.
Yeah, under 4.
Doesn't, if John was on it as a city council member, he's also on RPAC right now. So RPAC would be represented. But in the future, if somebody else was representing the council and they weren't on RPAC, I don't think they'd be represented then. That's what I'm trying to get to.
Okay, I understand. The issue with that, if I could think it out with you out loud, is this is not designated any particular person, so we'd have to have the appointment process have somebody that doubles up, or it wouldn't work. Because there's 2 here, there's 2 council members on this, and you're talking 3 different commissions. would be a little bit tricky. I'm commenting to see what your thoughts are.
I don't know how it should be handled. I just think RPAC should be represented on this somehow. And it should be defined so they don't get left out in the future.
Go ahead, Mr. City Administrator.
If I may, there may be a way to look at it, and it would be basically having one of the two council representatives have to be one of the RPAC representatives. So in this situation, it would be either Councilmember Favlis, Councilmember Sullivan. We could easily put that language in. I'm not recommending it or saying that we should do it, but it's something that we could do just by adding of which one is a member of the Recreation and Park Advisory Committee to the end of section 4. And that would basically define that one of the council representatives would be one of the representatives on RPAC. And then you'd have the Planning Commission, EDA, and RPAC all covered by some representation that way. There's other ways that we could do it as well.
Give me one moment, please. So you're suggesting you could add it to, at the very end, and 2 voting city council members representatives appointed annually by the mayor with the consent of the council. Go ahead.
Yeah.
We're trying to follow this.
Of which one is a member of the Recreation and Parks Advisory Committee.
That would work for me.
But keep that indexed. When we go to make a motion, I hope we can do this all in one fell swoop and not be doing amendments to the thing. So, thank you very much. Have anything further?
No.
Appreciate your comments. Thank you. Mr. Kirby.
I don't have much. I'm just kind of concentrating a little bit on the action requested here. They're looking for approval of the bylaws as they are. I guess my feeling is CPAP commission maybe should refine these bylaws a little bit and then bring them back to the council, should they not? Isn't that what the action is we're looking at?
They could. I think what we're trying to do is I think the sequence is establish the bylaws. If CPAT would like to recommend changes, they would have to do so. I think we added this as a standard language in our bylaws on the last is they're established and maybe amended by the city council in amendment of the bylaws, Article 4. So I think it's important to establish them in a manner that city council feels appropriate, and then if CPAT wants to amend those or change them, then they can make a recommendation to city council. I think we're pretty close to getting to a place where I think we feel comfortable with it.
Is it not correct? I'll state it a different way. Right now, the CPAT really doesn't exist. That's your problem right now.
That is the problem. So all of the terms have technically expired. They expired at the end of 2019. We don't have the members of Planning Commission or EDA. So yeah, there really are no seats technically filled right now.
President.
Okay, go ahead.
It would follow the same procedure that we had with RPAC, where we're operating, we see where there's an issue, and then we came back and we changed our bylaws to fit what the group actually is. But we have to have something to start with.
I think what we're basically looking for is people to fill the positions, and then they should probably refine these bylaws from what we have. Am I correct? Or we're trying to decide how many positions and what positions should be filled by whom and represented by whom, correct?
You're trying to give an outline for what this group would look like, which is our role as a city council. It's their role to carry out the plan and make suggestions if they want to make changes. That's how I'd phrase it. This group originally came from city council appointing and deciding to have such a group. We're giving them, for lack of a better word, a charter on which to operate. Anything further?
I do not know.
Okay, let's go around one more time just to be clear. Mr. Sullivan, I want my name just okay? Anybody? Okay. Based on the discussion, I'm going to try something here. I'm going to ask the city administrator to summarize the possible changes with regard to Article 1, Section 4, including RPAC there, and also to Section 5, specifying the mayor and the city administrator. Can you outline those for us?
Yes, I can. So section 4, essentially we would add a addition of a sentence, comma, at the end of it, of section 4, comma, of which one is a member of the Recreation and Park Advisory Committee. That would essentially have representation from EDA, Planning Commission, and RPAC on, as a voting member. And then on section 5, the question is, do we want to include designating the mayor as the ex officio member and the staff liaison as the city administrator? That is, we could go either way. I will note that there is nothing in the bylaws designating who the ex officio is right now as it stands. So somewhere, if not in section 5, there should be something in there that designates the ex officio. So I would recommend at a minimum, if the mayor is the one that is the ex officio or is intended to be, define it there, and leave the staff liaison alone, but you can also designate myself as the staff liaison.
Okay. Let's see if we can do this. Would someone like to make a motion to adopt the bylaws as presented with these modifications, that being adding RPAC to, excuse me, I didn't keep it in front of me, section 4, and to section 5 specifying the mayor and the city administrator as the ex officio representatives?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
Mr. Cavalies, Mr. Sullivan seconded. Let's be sure we have anything further here. If we do this now, we pass this, we will have adopted these bylaws in that way. Again, knowing they can be amended later, Mr. Kirby, your point is well taken. CPAC can come back to us and make any recommendations they want. But this gets it started, gets them rebooted, so to speak. I think that's the word you used, actually, rebooted. Okay, any further discussion of any kind? Any further discussion? Okay, we're going to call for the vote. All in favor of adopting it with these two changes, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Thank you. We're going to move now to the next item on the agenda, which is the board and commission appointments. Mr. City Administrator.
President Krogman, members of City Council, before you is a board and commission appointment for tonight, the Planning Commission. Up first, I'd like to just give an update as far as where we are with our board and commission vacancies. We have a few, not too many, but we do have one on the Planning Commission that you'll be able to evaluate tonight. There is still one on the Airport Commission with a term ending 2022, and then CPAT. I put a little asterisk by that, but there are potentially 2 terms there that we will continue to market for that have a term that ends in 2020 and 2021. Tonight, focusing on just the Planning Commission, as we've received 2 applications that have been included in your packet. What we're looking for is consideration to fill that vacant seat that has a term that ends on December 31st, 2021. There are 2 candidates, Stephen Randolph and Colleen Johnson. And with that, the process generally is if City Council, if a member would like to make a motion to appoint one of the members, there can be a second and a vote, and if that passes, then that person is appointed. I'll assist with the facilitation of the process, and if there's any questions, please let me know.
Okay, have you indicated to both applicants that they could appear here?
Yes.
Okay. I know that Ms. Johnson is present. Is Mr. Randolph here? Thank you, Mr. Randolph. Glad to see you there. Would either of you like to address the council and talk about your interests and your qualifications? You don't have to, but you're certainly welcome to. Please take the podium.
Gentlemen, thank you for interviewing me tonight or talking to me about this position. I think the reason why I'm interested in it, I was looking at Mr. Randolph's great skills, and I think that he's very well qualified. My background is more project management. That's what I do. Doing it for almost 20 years for a firm in downtown Minneapolis, and I moved here actually just in 2017. And I moved to this town because I thought it was the cutest darn little town I'd ever seen, and I wanted to see good things for it. So I kind of feel that with the Planning Commission, I haven't lived here all my life, so I look at it a little differently from everyone who has. And I see that there's great opportunity for this town to improve it and to grow it and to be a part of something bigger. So that's why I applied for the position.
Thank you. Mr. Randolph, would you like to address the council, please? If you want to.
Well, I've met some of you before. I had a stroke a couple years ago. I'm a little speech impaired. I always tell Sean Kirby as I leave him, not yet. So it's been quite a while I've known him. Mr. Sullivan, I've known you for a while. My interest in this is that I was born in this town back in '49. I lived on Main Street back in the old days. I knew what it was like. I hear people say, why did we ever tear those buildings down? When I worked in those buildings as a kid, I went through the basements and saw all the rats in the grocery stores. There was no foundations left. You could almost see up through the river underneath them. But it was a good thing we got done. It's just that the long plan didn't work out quite right. We need some more business in this town again. We need more living places. You have to see my voice fade on me a little bit here. But I came back here. I was gone for almost 17 years. I came back here after I retired, and I was surprised at what was missing. Again, some of the stuff that had been here and disappeared. The mall was empty. The parking lot was empty. I'd like to see this town succeed and get back on its feet again. And that's part of my interest in this position.
Thank you very much. Council members, anyone else, the process will be, someone can make a motion to nominate one of these candidates. We will vote. I think we should tell the candidates if somebody votes no, it's perhaps because they prefer the other candidate. We do not have to pick either of these individuals. If we decide as a council that we don't want to, we can defer that appointment. I'm not advocating that in any way. I'm just simply indicating what the possibilities are of how this could play out. I would like to have a little bit of discussion if you want to have any. Mr. Fabelers?
I have a question I'd like to ask both, if that's acceptable.
Please do.
My question is that you both put an application in for the same thing, okay? If you don't make it on this, would you be interested in the airport commission, which also has to do with planning, it has to do with construction, it has to do with growth. There's a lot of things going on the airport commission with a lot of decisions to be made about growth. So if you didn't make it into this, would you be interested in the airport commission?
If you want to talk any longer than a yes or no, please come to the podium. Otherwise, I can record by indicating what you said. By the way, we would not appoint that commission tonight. The airport commission would be a later appointment.
It's up to the city council. You could do it tonight, yes.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't sure because of the application process. Mr. Randolph?
Should have sat closer. I guess I would be open to that position, but I did apply for the Park and Recreation a couple years ago. I talked to Mr. Jasper about that. Not Mr. Jasper, Jasper. And I had a stroke since then again, and that was why I pulled back from that position. I wasn't healing up right. Can you tell I used to have a karaoke business in town here for 15 years. And this is my singing voice now, so you can see my life has changed somewhat. But yes, I guess I don't really know much about airplanes other than I've flown in them and I crashed in a helicopter once, but I don't know, that's not qualifications, but I would be open, I guess.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson?
I guess I kind of feel the same way. I would be open to it. I've never really thought about the airport commission because an airplane isn't something that I'm interested in, but I think if it comes into the planning to help make Sueur bigger and better, then sure.
Okay. Do you have another question for him now?
No, just in the airport commission, they are expanding. We're looking at building new hangars, business opportunities that are out there, taxi runways, additional things that are going on that are in the planning stages. So,
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Comments, questions? Okay, we're at the point where someone could make a motion with regard to the planning commission to appoint an individual. If you want to nominate one of these two people, we would then vote on that motion. So, does someone want to make a motion?
choice.
candidates didn't hear, he said tough choice, which is, thank you very much, very complimentary. Mr. Kirby.
I think I'd like to make a motion. I want to thank both of you for being here. I think you're very qualified for this position. I think it's good that we have people that want to participate in our community and participate in things that are happening in this community. But I'd like to make a motion, we appoint Ms. Johnson to the Planning Commission, and I hope that Mr. Randolph will consider another position.
Okay. Mr. Kirby has made a motion to appoint Ms. Johnson. Is there a second to that motion? Is there a second to that motion?
I will second that motion.
Okay. The motion's been seconded by Mr. Favalis. Now, gentlemen, what we're going to do is vote on this motion at this time. And the motion again regards the Planning Commission. Okay, I'm going to actually poll you so we're real clear. Well, actually, we'll do it first by a voice vote, but we may have to poll you. All in favor of the motion to appoint Ms. Johnson to the Planning Commission, please say aye. Aye. Sueur, Kirby, Krogman. Was there any aye over here? Favalis? Okay. All in favor, all opposed say nay, please.
Nay.
Thank you. We have, the motion carries. Ms. Johnson is appointed to that commission. You saw the hesitancy on Mr. Sullivan's part. It's a difficult position to be put in, but I think you all understand we have to make decisions. So thank you, Mr. Sullivan. I need to consult with the city attorney one moment. I think we need to modify the agenda to put the airport commission on.
You probably could, if you would like, if the city council would like to consider Mr. Randolph, if he's still up to it, to the airport commission, you could amend the agenda in the middle of the agenda and add that as another item and take action on it.
Would one of the
I'd like to make a motion to
this would be
change the agenda to add to it for the airport commission appointment.
Mr. Sluter's made that motion. Is there a second? I have a second from Mr. Sullivan. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Aye. Passes unanimously. Okay, let us proceed then. We're going to check with Mr. Randolph one more time. Mr. Favalis, you're really good at this. Would you do it, please?
Would you be interested in being on the airport commission, sir?
I'm being 70 years old, I have a really hard time changing my mind in a hurry, so yes, I would.
Okay. I would like to make that
Excuse me,
motion.
if you'd like more time, we don't want to force you to do this.
Well, I came down here intending to try to help the community and get back into action a little bit. I don't like retirement that much. I don't like being sick either, and I don't like going to funerals at Mr. Kirby's place out there, but,
I don't either.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your candidness. Okay, a motion, please, with regard to this. Did you make
I'll
one?
make a motion. I'll second that.
Mr. Favalis makes the motion. Mr. Sullivan seconds it to have Mr. Randolph appointed to the Airport Commission. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thanks to both of you. We appreciate your coming tonight. It does help to have you here and to meet with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're going to proceed then to the next item on the agenda, which is item 6, Delta sidewalk snow removal and grass length abatement process. Mr. City Administrator.
President Krogman, members of City Council, this is something that I've had on my list to discuss with City Council for some time. Talk about the process that we use internally to enforce our city code related to sidewalk snow removal and grass length abatement. So, as a little history summarizing this, city staff sends between 35 and 50 letters out every year for each of the things that we're talking about tonight, sidewalk snow removal and grass abatement. So roughly about 100 properties get letters. Some comply, a lot don't. We end up going or moving that snow and then sending an invoice back to that resident. Right now, and I'll kind of jump ahead, we don't have any sort of administrative fee that we put onto the actual invoice that's sent. We're recommending that moving forward to help recoup some of those costs that we have, and I can talk about that in detail later. But really, so if it costs $30 right now to mow somebody's lawn or have our contractor mow the lawn, we just send a $30 invoice to that property. They can choose to pay it or not. If they don't pay that, it does go on, it does enter the certification process that starts in September, and I can talk about that in detail if you'd like as well. So currently, residents, if they are determined to not be following the city code for snow removal, they are given 2 days to remove the snow from the sidewalk before we go out there and do that for them. With grass, the current internal policy is 7 days. So if you can imagine, with snow, one of the issues is we want to make sure that those sidewalks are accessible, ADA accessible, if that is the case, for people to be able to go and use them safely. Waiting 2 days, sometimes that you don't have that sidewalk open for 2 days. In the city code, it explicitly says that when a sidewalk is not clear, it's considered a nuisance. If it's considered a nuisance, immediate abatement is an action that I feel confident we can take. Grass as well. Now you might wonder, well, why do we have these grass considerations? One, we recently just passed International Building Maintenance Code standards indicating that in our city code that the level is 8 inches that is required. Anything above that is considered to be a nuisance. That is to keep down on rodents, that type of thing that are in our community. As you can imagine, if that grass is 10 inches by the time we notice it and send a letter giving 7 days, and we have a few good rains and a lot of sun and humidity, that grass can be upwards of 14, 15 inches tall by the time we end up having to mow it. So there's some consideration there, and essentially it's to keep the neighborhoods looking nice, to keep the rodent population down, which may or may not be the case. The proposed changes that we're discussing tonight, we would not be sending a letter notifying the resident that they're no longer in compliance. What would happen is that if we notice that they are not in compliance, one of the contractors that we use and we go to through an RFP process to determine the low bidder on some of these things, would then just be alerted that somebody at this residence has a property that needs to be abated, and they would go out and abate it, and the city would then send the invoice. So what we would be proposing is that contractor cost, whatever that is, and it varies depending on, it's an hourly rate for both snow removal and mowing, depending on if you have a lot of sidewalk or if there's 3-4 feet of snow in your sidewalk, it might take longer. You have a 1 acre lot versus a 1/4 acre lot, that'll take longer. But really it's just passing that contractor cost plus the administrative fee of $20 onto that resident or that property owner. The administrative fee, just to talk about that a little bit, it consists of the time taken to manage the contractors, to document the violation, so take photos of the situation where let's say the grass is too long or the snow is in the sidewalk, and then also the finance aspect of sending those invoices out. I think in all likelihood the fee of $20 is lower than what it could be, but for the sake of somebody who maybe spends $20 or $30, has a contractor cost of $20 or $30, to have an administrative fee be equal or more than that might be difficult. So taking that into consideration is why the $20 administrative fee is there. Now there's going to be some challenges with this kind of policy change if we do choose to move forward with it. Notifying residents of the enforcement policy change, that's the biggest difficulty. And there are repeat violators of this throughout the summer. There's properties that don't mow their lawn, and we're the ones that mow their lawn. And they probably get a pretty good deal maybe compared to contracting it out themselves if they just wait for us to send the letter. Because you might only mow your lawn twice a month maybe, or maybe once a month. So we want to try to make it so that it's not constantly getting really bad in some neighborhoods. But notifying residents of the enforcement policy change, what we're proposing, the newsletter, website, social media, seasonal and storm event reminder. So if there's a snow event, reminding people to clear their snow, or seasonally throughout the summer, letting people know that this is the policy moving forward, and you're not going to get a letter anymore saying that you have 7 days to mow. It's just going to be mowed. And in the case where if there's a property that we would invoice, and they would choose not to pay that bill, we would still go through the certification process. So what that means is And if there's an invoice that's past due on September 1st, they enter the list where we start going down the certification process. That doesn't mean that it'll be certified. We will know that it'll be certified by the end of November, but they will receive notice that they have a delinquent bill and that they have to pay it by a certain date, and if they don't, it will be certified. So following that process as well. The rollout schedule related to these potential policy changes, the grass length would be proposed to start this spring or this summer, whenever the growing season starts. The sidewalk snow removal, that would be next fall, so September of 2020. So what we're looking for is we're just looking for feedback on the policy. Is this something we would like to move forward with? And if so, what we would need to do is amend the fee schedule that was adopted at the beginning of the year, basically to include that $20 administrative fee, that per property administrative fee. So with that, I will entertain questions, comments, concerns about the change. As a note, St. Peter, this is the way they handle their situation. They market it, they put it out there. They're obviously communities used to it, but I'm sure like when we enacted the snow emergency 2 years ago, that hadn't been done for years, and there were challenges. So there's no doubt there will be challenges of people saying that they didn't know that this was now the policy, but it's very clear in the city code what the standards are, and we can enforce them how we feel fit.
Okay, comments, please.
I have one major concern, and that is on snow removal. I agree with this. However, if you have a snow event and then sub-zero temperatures the next day, you're asking or literally telling people to go outside in a situation where the school cancels for kids for being outside because it's that cold. And I think without having some type of language in there, you're putting people's health at risk.
And I can address that. So the enforcement mechanism is the police chief or the police department, and they use their discretion in that type of situation. So if there's a situation where you shouldn't be outside shoveling, they're not going to be sending a contractor out doing that. In general, we have 24 hours in here. Since I've been here, we've never enforced it to that level. It's always been, we're pretty lenient. We use our discretion. It's usually 48 hours or more before we actually start enforcing it. The 24 hours is there so that we have something to use as a mechanism, but we could add something. We would have to change the city code in order to add something a little bit differently if we wanted to put something in there as far as the enforcement window or the enforcement mechanisms. We can do that. But I would say to address it, it's really, I think the police force uses their discretion. If somebody has an issue with it, like we've had a couple issues this year. If they dispute it, they talk to the police chief, and if the police chief is reasonable, they'll just waive that invoice. So if that's the case where, we get a snowfall and it's now 25 below zero wind chill, the police won't be out enforcing this. They'll use their discretion. If we do want to change the city code, we can definitely do that and look at that through the ordinance process.
Mr. Kirby.
I have a quick question. We're not looking at changing the ordinance at all, we're just changing the notification, correct?
Right now, yeah, that's basically the internal enforcement process. I wanted to run it by city council because this is potentially something that you could hear about if somebody just gets their lawn mowed and they don't know why.
Let's be clear. You've got a policy that internal, you call it, and then you have a fee schedule. Is the policy dictated through or determined by the city staff? Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so that part, city staff, all we'd be voting on for a vote would be the motion with regard to the fee schedule. Otherwise, it's pure recommendation to the staff.
That is correct. And I want to get feedback from city council on how we should handle this. Because it would be a pretty substantial change to the way that we're handling it right now. I've heard quite a bit of feedback in the 3+ years I've been here about, so-and-so's lawns, very long. We generally have already sent a letter out, or we're waiting until that 7-day period to actually go out there and mow it. So, There are issues. It's all about, what we want to do as a city council as far as how we want to handle this. It is an internal policy, but I want to make sure I get input from city council.
Mr. White, Mr. Fablese's question, could that not be put into this policy, into the city staff policy about exigent circumstances of weather would not lead to enforcement of the policy, or words to that effect?
I guess I would say it's already in there, the discretion. We don't have, this isn't a written policy, what we do right now. This is just what the practice has been. It's already in there, in my opinion, that the police use their discretion when writing these letters that they've sent out already. The enforcement piece, I'm not looking to document this as far as, having this be an official policy, but just to give direction.
Okay, other comments? Mr. Sullivan?
Two things, Jasper, I think one of the notifications should be published in, I think, the Sueur and the Henderson paper. I think that's one avenue where we maybe miss some people on the other items. I know everybody gets a newsletter, but I think it's important, and I know when you reference St. Peter doing this every year, they publish it in the spring, making this noticed.
Excuse me, you mean, I'm using my fingers like an ad in a box, not buried in the legal notices?
Right.
I never read the legal notices until I became a council member, trying
Right.
to see if I did something I didn't know I did.
No, I would put an ad in
Okay.
stating that this is something new.
Thank you.
Second thing, just a clarification question. When that 24-hour window stops, so 24 hours after a snowfall event, you go out to a residence, you decide that I haven't shoveled my sidewalk. What happens, at what point, so the abatement process starts at that point, correct?
It does. Yeah, if I may. So right now, if it's identified that that sidewalk is not cleared, what happens is a letter. So administrative staff for the PD has a standard template letter that's sent out to that resident, giving them 2 days to remove that snow. And if it's not done within that 2-day window, then that's when a contractor's brought in.
So under the new policy, it would be done effective immediately at 24 hours.
Correct. We would hold the standard that we would get it out, and I agree that the paper, I do remember seeing that in the paper for St. Peter's. That's a good point, that the residents of Sueur are held to the standard that they know that the sidewalk should be cleared. We're not going to give a window to clear it. It's just, it needs to be cleared within that 24-hour window. And if it's not, then we'll document it, and then the contractor can come out and remove it and charge the resident back.
So then, I guess where my question was going then, if that abatement process has been started, contractor's been notified, I now shovel my sidewalk, who gets billed for that?
Yeah, so that's built, so if I may, I'll answer that. So that's built into the contract that we have with the contractor. If they go to the site and it's already been cleared, nobody gets billed. That's just the cost of doing the business and having the contract with us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate your comments. Go ahead, please.
Next thought, because I'm one of the people that owns a corner lot with the new ADA ramps. When the street crew comes through and that piles up like it does because it's so low, it gets really wet and then it freezes. By the time you get out there, now you've got a foot of frozen stuff to have to try to clear out to have access to be able to get to the school. That's not so simple. They've got to do a better job if that's what your expectation is for the people that own those lots.
It is challenging where the snow is stored, and I don't know if there's a way around it to be able to do that. I could consult with their street public works department, but it happens at every corner. The expectation, the way the city code is written, is that's the resident's responsibility. It's the snow, it's got to go somewhere, right? And if we want to look at doing a citywide sidewalk snow removal idea, cities do it, right? But it costs something. It's so there's things that we can do. We have a policy right now so that if there's a trail, the city takes care of the trail and any adjacent sidewalk to it. We don't have any policy about schools and things of that nature. Sidewalks adjacent to or safe routes to school or something like that. The way that the code is written, the way it's handled right now, is that that's the resident's responsibility.
We'll stay over here for a second, go ahead.
I think the piggybacking Councilmember Fadley's comment though, I think one of the concerns we heard a lot this year was snow being 2.5 to 2 feet away from the sidewalks.
8.
And who's responsible for it? And if I'm that homeowner sitting on that corner property, my responsibility is the sidewalk. Now I want people to have access to that sidewalk, but if there's 2-3 feet of snow out into the roadway, I'm not gonna ask a citizen to shovel that.
That's correct. So if it's in the roadway, if I may, it's the city's responsibility to clear it. Anything on the roadway in front of the curb, we'll call it. That's the city's. If there's issue areas, problem areas, let us know. We'll do our best to get it cleared. Now, in some areas, we don't have very much boulevard space to store snow. It's a definite challenge, and when you flip the snow, sometimes it gets flipped right onto the sidewalk. So it is a challenge, and again, I'll stress the people inspecting these things use discretion. I get it all the time throughout the winter that I just shoveled my sidewalk and then the plow came by again and now it's full of snow again. It's difficult to manage that, and we really don't have much ability to change that unless we change the way we remove snow. If we, center plow it and then snow blow it into the back of a truck and haul it out. In certain situations, it could work, but it's more time consuming. So it is a challenge. I don't want to be unsympathetic to anybody about it, but it is a challenge, and it happens everywhere around town.
Let's go over here, Mr. Sueur.
On this, you said you'd have to do a documentation check of this, to take pictures to prove that it wasn't done, that it was too high. I'm just wondering if, when you're doing that, you could do a courtesy check at the residence to see if there's another issue. Maybe the person's ill, needs help or something, that if you're gonna take the pictures, can you at least go to the door and leave something at the door and check to see if the people are okay?
If I may, that is a good point. I know that the PD, the police department, does do that in cases that, they generally know almost everybody that lives in the community, and they understand if there may be an at-risk adult or something like that, that they could go in and do a kind of wellness check based on the condition of their sidewalk or the condition of their lawn. That does occur right now, and I think it would be included in the policy, the internal policy. So I trust the police department in the sense that they have a good understanding of where some problem areas are and where some potentially challenging homes could be.
Okay, anything further from anybody? Have you received enough feedback with regard to your internal policy?
Yeah, I think so. In general, I guess there could be action taken just to give me direction to move forward with the abatement process as described. I just don't want to make the change internally without everybody or a majority of city council being on board with it, because we can continue to go down the road that we have gone down. It's just a matter of getting that nuisance, or what we want to call it, abated in a quick manner. It does take some time, and in the meantime, when somebody's grass is between 8 inches and 16 inches, we might get a call 3-4 times from neighbors saying, what's going on with this property? Where if we would abate it almost immediately, that would eliminate that.
One other thing is you've got the water culvert areas alongside of what's going to be 22, that if the owner doesn't go in there and cut it, it's going to be longer than what you're talking about. Okay, so whoever is supposed to be responsible for that has to be held at the same standard, because you can't tell the owners that they have to have this and let the county have the stuff be 2 feet tall.
That does pose a challenge, right? It does. So in general, we do task the county with maintaining their right-of-ways. They actually are the enforcement mechanism for those right-of-ways for noxious weed control. We we haven't had to send, we've never sent anything to the county. The county sent stuff to us in the past. As far as how we do it, I know in the city code, if you look at it, there's an agriculture clause in there that gives them an exemption to this, where if it's determined to be ag land, they can have it grow longer than 8 inches. I think if we want to clarify it, we probably could through an amendment to the city code, through an ordinance. I don't know, it's in this area where it's in the right of way. I think that's what you're talking about, areas along a road, and it's not being cut. I know the county has a process to do that, and they do cut it, but yeah, if that's something we want to add to it, we definitely can.
Anybody else? Okay, Mr. Kirby.
Yeah, real quick, I think, this is a good transition time now. I mean, we're moving out of winter and moving into spring. I think if we hit those high points with the, websites and your social media, I think this is a good time to transition into this new policy. That's all I have to say.
Okay, I'm gonna ask again, Mr. City Administrator, anything further on the policy side?
No, sorry. No. The right-of-way question, I'm gonna have to look into that a little bit more to see what our controls are. And if there is something, I'd say we would move forward with something as far as a code change. It might just be communicating with the county better when this stuff is getting taller and saying, hey, this is getting out of hand. Could you come by and mow it? Might do something like that.
Yeah, we're gonna move on then. We have also the possibility here of a motion adopting the fee schedule for sidewalk snow removal and grass length abatement of the contractor cost plus a $20 per property administrative fee. I would take it that's per incident, is that correct?
That is per incident, per property. So
Okay.
if there's a property, for example, that is 2 parcels, they would receive an invoice for 1 parcel and 1 for another parcel. Both would have an administrative fee. So it'd be broken down by parcel.
So the motion would be to adopt a fee schedule for the sidewalk snow removal and grass length abatement of the contractor cost plus a $20 per property per incident administrative fee.
So moved.
That was Mr. Sullivan. Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Kirby seconded it. Now we go to discussion. Any discussion? Discussion. Okay, we're gonna vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion, anybody nay? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. City Administrator. We have one more item on the agenda. Would anyone like a recess before we go to that? Apparently not. I might, I start coughing a little bit, but I'm okay right now. Let's go forward. Mr. City Administrator?
President Croman, members of council, before you is a discussion item related to basically a video production system that staff has identified. We've evaluated video systems to basically use to broadcast our city council meetings. As a little history, we do receive money through our MediaCom franchise agreement through something called the Public and Educational Grant. Basically, every account that MediaCom has in our city limits pays 85 cents a month to go towards this fund. It generates around $6,000 to $7,000 per year. Right now, there's about $10,000, a little over $10,000 in that fund since the franchise fee was adopted by City Council. As a little history, VSI is the business that we've identified to provide this system potentially. They have been the company that has given us or provided us the microphone system that we use. As far as streaming, I feel it's the most effective way that we get information out to the public. There's more people that view our city council meetings online than attend. That's how I'm gauging it. And then, those are online at any time for anybody to go and view. In general, we typically see 200 to 400 views of the city council meeting when we typically have maybe 1 to 4 or 5 people in present. So I think of it as a tool to provide what the city's message is, what we're doing, what the city business that we're conducting is. It's probably the most effective communication tool we have. One thing that we aren't doing currently that this system would provide is we'd be able to live broadcast to our MediaCom public access channel that we have right now. We have 1 channel per the franchise agreement. This would allow us to do that through this single system. But there is a cost to this. The total cost of this is $25,400. What the proposed funding mechanisms for this, and this item is identified in the capital improvement plan at $25,000 for 2020. But we would use the $10,000 that we currently have in the PEG fund, and then the city general fund would borrow money to the PEG fund to be paid back the remaining balance until it's paid in full. Staff estimates what that it would be is between 3 and 5 years, depending on subscription rates for MediaCom in the community. One of the items that were brought up were, if somebody's got Dish Network or what's the other one? DirecTV. They don't have access to that public access television channel, but they do have it. Everybody has access to it if they have an internet connection. The number of people that would actually access it through public access television is unknown. We don't know, but there would be some people that would. The other thing that we would be able to do with this system would be able to program that channel. So basically set up a schedule of either past meetings or other community events, working in events with the school district, like one-act play, things like that. We could actually program our cable access television channel using the system. So that would be an added benefit as far as the community knowledge of what's going on. But the biggest thing that we need to discuss is the city council comfortable with the funding mechanism as described. If not, this would be something that we would postpone and look at possibly in 3 to 5 more years. You get a much better, so you think about it, you get a much better quality product using something else than what we have. We have kind of this MacGyver system here that works, but there are limitations to what we have. But it does work. So what I'm looking for, I guess I'll go through the benefits I've defined here, but you'd reach a larger audience potentially, having that cable access television option. You'd be able to incorporate school events either live or on a programmable schedule. You'd be able to program the broadcast, the MediaCom public access channel, and you'd have a much higher production value compared to the current system. So you'd be able to have things in there, who council members are. So one thing that when I look at the videos, if I was a new resident and I'm looking at it, I said, well, I don't know who these people are when they're talking. So we can have some graphics and things like that could be used to help with that. So what I'm looking for is just feedback about potentially purchasing this system. I did get some technical information for one of the council members. The system is currently available. It is a demo unit. It was for a school district, I believe, in Foley. They had some budget cuts and they ordered the system and then it went back. So it's a system that isn't used. Or hasn't been used, but it is discounted from what it would be new. So I don't know if the market is, there's a strong market for these types of things. So if we decide not to go with it, somebody else will probably pick it up. But it's roughly about a $10,000 discount compared to what it would be to do it brand new. This is the same exact system that the city of Mankato uses for their meetings. Very robust, very professional looking meetings. One of the biggest challenges I've identified is potentially finding somebody that can run it during meetings. So right now, if people don't notice, I run the camera system through my computer here. This other system is a little more complex, and it would entail somebody else sitting in the room behind us, kind of producing the broadcast. So finding somebody, ideally we could find somebody from the school district that's interested in audio and video production, and they could do it, but that might be a challenging position to fill. I'm confident that if we need to, we can find city staff that can do it. But it would be great. It'd be a great partnership to try to get a younger individual that would want to do this. Maybe for a profession in the future to go into this. This system, just some information I received. This system is very similar to something that like a TV station in the 2000s would have used in their van, their mobile van. So kind of that technology. It's great technology for us. And I guess one of the other benefits is that it's a mobile system. So if we want to actually move it, it's in a cart. We can move it to the school, and we can broadcast a basketball game or a football game. Those types of things. There's some additional costs that would have to be incurred for cameras and things of that nature by the school district. But my conversations with the superintendent at the school district indicated that they're interested in it. They're going through their own budgetary struggles right now, and that they're interested in it. They think it's important. That they're looking at ways of enhancing their meetings too. So with that, I'll entertain any questions about it. Really, what we'd be looking for, if the funding mechanism, if we can agree that that's adequate, what we're looking for is a motion to approve the purchase of the system.
Comments, Mr. Sullivan?
Jasper, did I see earlier maybe that there was some legislation maybe being pushed that we're gonna have to start recording maybe more of our meetings?
Yeah, I can talk to that, and Councilmember Krogman and Councilmember Sueur are going to be at the Legislative Action Day on Wednesday, and this is one of the bills. One of them is that any board, committee, commission, team that we have designated that uses open meeting law will be required to audio record. So audio record the meeting. We'd be on the hook to store that, to capture that, store that. I don't know for at what length. It might be in perpetuity. It might be 3 years. It's all determined by the bill. But right now, the only one that we actually do is the city council meeting regularly. Occasionally, we'll do a special meeting or an EDA or a planning commission meeting. We've done that in the past for more meetings that we feel the community is really interested in. But we're not required at the moment, but we potentially could be.
Other comments or questions? Mr. Pavlis?
Jasper and I talked earlier. I'm worried a little bit about the storage capacity. I do think that 16 terabyte in this day and age using AVI files, AVI files are not files that are very well condensed like an MP4 would be, and I can see where 2 hours of recording was going to chew up at least 2.5 or more gig per recording. You said that it's 16 terabyte of storage. When we talked earlier, I'm still not sure if that is in RAID configuration, which means that one is a backup to the original or not, because that would mean that it's actually 8 terabyte of storage.
Yes, to be clear, it's a total of 16 terabytes. It's rated with an additional 16 terabytes. So,
Okay.
so it's a total of 16 actual storage terabytes.
Okay. One of the positive aspects that I see out of this is when we're trying to promote and do things with the community center, you can have a dedicated televisions in areas at the community center where you have a captive audience, especially where your cardio was at, for a half an hour, 45 minutes, to be showing all of the different things that are going on in our city. And I see that as a positive. With this, do we already have cable up at the community center? I thought in our contract that they have to provide it to the main buildings.
They do. So there's a nuance to this. The FCC recently passed some rules that they're trying to eliminate that aspect from our franchise agreements because there's a value to it. So that aside, right now they currently do. So they do provide MediaCom basic cable to every one of our facilities.
Again, it's a negotiating tool too for us for the future. All right, that's what I got.
I have a quick question about the storage before we forget it. What are our requirements for having storage? Not talking about it's nice to have storage. Are we required to keep
3
these
years.
meetings and others for so many years? Video?
So technically, no, we're not. Only thing we're required to keep right now are closed meeting recordings, and we gotta keep those forever. But as far as the videos go, we're not required to have videos or recorded audio recordings. It's our choice that we do it, and what we do is we keep them forever, as long as we can.
And if you went to an audio requirement, in other words, the bill that we're going to be talking to legislators about on Wednesday, if that passed and we had a requirement that this meeting and other meetings be recorded with audio recording, could we take the recording off of the video and then not have to have so much storage needed because of the video?
We could. I'm sure there's a way that you could do that. I think the idea would be that if we would go through the process of recording it, we would keep that video as long as we can. I think there's benefit to it, but there's space requirements for that.
There's very high-end,
Very high.
super software that's out there that is actually no charge. That you can, and I use it in our field. It developed for Hollywood, and you can take it automatically separates the audio file from the video file, and you can save that as an MP3.
Very good, thank you. Other comments or questions? Go ahead, gentlemen.
I can't speak to the technology like Johnny can, but I think it's exciting to, the different abilities we'll have with this, and especially the outreach with the, the school and things like that. I think it carries a lot of benefits with it. And it sounds like most of the funding is there already, or at least 40% of it, so I think it's exciting.
Okay. Mr. Sluter?
I hope we get to talk to Representative Freeberg or Senator Russ just to see if they're gonna provide any funding in this bill that they've got out there, to see if maybe we can recoup some of it that way.
Yeah, Mr. Sluter and I are going to carry a sign that says unfunded mandate. There's a lot of these lately, and this would be one of them. Right now, we haven't seen any indication that it'd be funded. It's up to each community to figure out how to do it. So, appreciate your comment, Mr. Sluter. Okay, anything further? The city administrator has indicated that we could consider a motion approving the purchase of the video production package described by VSI in the agenda packet, not to exceed $25,400. If someone would want to move that, you're welcome to do so.
Can I ask one more question?
Surely.
Jasper, you said this was in the CIP. Is that for this year?
I believe so, yeah. So it was identified in the adopted CIP for this year, yep.
Okay. I guess I'd be willing to go ahead and make the motion to make the purchase for $25,400 to buy this product.
Mr. Sullivan's made the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Fabeley has seconded. We're going to go to any further discussion. Anything further? There's an old thing we're supposed to ask this 3 times, so I'll say discussion, discussion, discussion. That's 4. Yeah. Okay, 3 more. Let's vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. We're at the point in our agenda where we have indications from our council members of activities that they've been involved in on behalf of the city. We'll start with Mr. Sluter. You want to mention, please, what we're going to be doing on Wednesday?
Yes, on Wednesday, it's Legislative Action Day up at Capitol for the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities. We will be there all day. It's 4 meetings. Also tomorrow, Region 9 has a clean energy tour. I will be going out to the bioenergy plant tomorrow.
Thank you. Mr. Kirby?
I have nothing tonight, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Sullivan?
I have a few things tonight. Me and Councilmember Fabeley had an RPAC committee meeting last week. Our community center project that we approved here at City Council was moved to April. So that'll be completed in April, and we were just trying to not interfere with the March activities going on.
This is the cubby holes?
Yep,
Okay, or is that the right term, cubby holes?
Yeah, they're
Storage areas?
and
Okay.
the wall.
Yeah, and a wall, thank you.
We did receive an update on membership. Overall numbers are still hard to track due to Max Galaxy, the software they're using. We also received an annual update on the rec programming from last year. There too, it mainly came out of Max Galaxy, and we noticed there were a lot of skewed numbers. So we're asking for to have that looked at again and brought back to us next month. Last Wednesday at Fire Commission, we got an introduction to our new fire chief, Jesse Winish. He also introduced his first and second chiefs, Tom Gerlich and Shane Meyer. They did move forward with purchasing the new turnout gear that they did not get the grant for last year. That should be arriving anytime now. They did apply for another FEMA grant for a 95% payout on a new tanker truck. And that would be replacing a 1983 milk truck that I believe was donated by the Agricure Leaser Cheese many years ago. Mainly based on safety concerns is why they're trying to get rid of it. Currently doesn't have a baffle, so the water just sways back and forth and it's real unsafe to drive. No, it's only a lap belt, so that tells you how old it is. Stick shift. Jesse stated he only has 4 or 5 people in the department that can safely drive the vehicle. He feels there's a good chance for receiving the grant. So the city or the fire department would be on 5% of that, would be what they'd have to pay for a new tanker. They're also applying for a grant for SCBA's, which also are at the point where they're going to have to be replaced by an NFPA standard.
What was that item, please, to be clear?
The SCBA's, it's the tanks and the masks. I believe it's the full component, right, Jasper?
Correct, yes.
Calls from last year went up from, they were in the 70s in 2018, they're up 83 in 2019. A lot of them were medical assists and car accidents or vehicle fires. They did let us know as a commission that in the future we're going to have to start looking at replacing a pumper truck. Their pumper number 2, which is their backup pumper, is a 1993 truck. The other one's 15 years old, so puts us at 2005, 2006. So they're looking at replacing the 1993 pumper in the next few years. That's a $600,000 to $700,000 replacement price. For assessments, what the city pays, what the townships pay, we did move forward with a 3-year plan, so it'll be a 3-year look back over usage. So it'll look at the number of times you've used, number of hours you've used the fire department in your township or city over the last 3 years, and that develops the formula on how we decide the assessment on what each part pays. So essentially, if you use the fire department, you pay for it, rather than a 60-40 split, which I think at one point it was, from my recollection.
Yeah, it was generally split down certain lines, and what we moved towards is just allocation of use.
So it just makes it more fair across the board. And that's all I've got tonight.
Thank you very much. Mr. Pavlik.
I wanted to read what he had for RPAC because I've got a couple of things to add on to that. RPAC, for those that don't know, that's the Recreation and Parks Committee. The RPAC meetings are going extremely well. It's just within 1 year's difference. They're far more productive, and that's kudos to staff on tightening up their agendas and the information that we're getting. And we feel that we're helping staff more with this type of format to be able to give decent input. We have an additional meeting this month for RPAC for reviewing the summer program, right? Summer program is to go actually spring and summer. They provided us what they were planning on putting and gave all of RPAC the opportunity to comment on that. It was kind of a neat format that they provided. So you go online, you could look through everything, and you can make the comments right on that, and it was recorded. That was really nice. I like that. And then we'll be going through a review on that on the 24th, so that it gets out at a correct deadline, so that it's printed.
Thank you. Mr. City Administrator?
I don't really have anything. I know there's a lot of discussion about COVID-19 or coronavirus. The city isn't really the authority to give advice. If we get anything, use the CDC, use the Sueur County Department of Health or the Minnesota Department of Health. Use all those resources. We'll try to post some information about that if people don't have it. We have some things posted on our bulletin board. Internally, we're working on some things, just contingency stuff as far as working hours, that type of thing, just trying to be as prepared as we can. So I stress just use the authorities, the federal and the state authorities, county authorities to get your information.
Thank you. I do not have anything further. It'd be appropriate to have a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Sullivan and Mr. Battleys were the two that, in that order. We'll vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed nay. Motion passes. We are adjourned.